we left off. We come back where we last left off. The Garganta having just closed, and the combat having apparently ended. Most of you are injured to some extent. Even if, like Seijo, you healed back from it quickly, there's injuries remain regardless, as they usually do. How does Yasha react to feeling no combatants nearby?
He will enter a sort of pseudo-meditative state as he powers down.
Right. In that case, you go back to the Vortex layer. And let that out. Ichigo sort of seeing the effect of Mundo, looks around wildly and then vanishes, having faced northwards just before he did so. Hisame is sort of trying to get to her feet but not really succeeding.
Shigeru will go over to help, but he will then also shout over to Fukigen to get his attention.
Fukigen up on the roof sort of sees you cooling and hops down. What is it?
I believe we need to put out all of these fires. If you wouldn't mind lending me some of your power.
Sure.
I will then charge and activate my Shikai, putting it as high up in the air as possible, so that Fukigen can essentially shoot the cloud to essentially wind blast water across as far distance as possible.
Alright. You release Danku in order to do that. That's the cloud of water. He takes a moment, sort of calculating for a second, before jumping up into the air a few times, getting into the clouds, and going into Shikai himself, firing his weapon at the fires, essentially creating torrents of water that put out the worst of them nearby. How's everyone else reacting to the end of the main battle?
I might just scan the area and see if there's anybody that needs assistance.
Do you want to send your minions out to see look for anybody?
Yeah, they could like search the rubble, or if there's if there's anybody trapped in any bits and bobs.
You sort of think for a second, and then, oh, that works, and you continue your minions to scan the area.
Hmm.
Roll.
You roll for that?
Hmm?
Or stats just a d12?
I would just say roll a d12, yeah.
Okay.
Woo! One of your minions trips over a rock and just dies.
They are burning, to be fair.
They are burning as well, yes. One of them runs towards this fire over here to see if it can see if anyone's nearby. However, the water jet launched by Fukigen strikes it, and it just turns into soggy mush.
Okay.
Soggy bread.
The other two, however, one begins to head south, and one begins to head west. And I will get back to you on what they find, if anything.
You know what?
How about Nozomi?
Yeah, I think you cut out and you're not... Yeah, now you're in Roll20 again.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard you begin to, and then it was cut out, and then I heard...
I don't know what happened there. I was saying is that the other two minions headed west and south to try and look for survivors, and I'll get back to you on what happens with that.
Alright.
Okay. What about Nozomi?
Yes, we'll also sort of... see if anyone needs help.
Roll D20. d12. You're going south, you say?
No, not particularly.
Okay.
I was just
General.
and like maybe helping people here as well. Like,
Okay.
depending.
Okay. I'll roll d12 then quickly, just to get 5. You sort of scan the area around you before crouching down and launching yourself upwards in a single leap. You slow your ascent at the very top of your jump, hanging in the air for a moment and looking around, trying to spot anybody. As far as you can tell, to the east is where the hunters carved out a path from. There's a fair bit of damage, and you can see a few people helping sort of support wounded comrades, or in a couple of cases a few stretchers. However, by and large, there doesn't seem to be much building damage in that area. To the south, you can see a lot of flames where Juno came from, but other than that, true to her word, there doesn't seem to be much in the way of personal damage, aside from a couple of people who are climbing to their feet after probably getting knocked out, having tried to get in her way. The west is mostly indiscriminate destruction. From this position, there's not so much fires or anything immediate needs to be addressed, but there's a lot of just general damage. You can't see anyone alive or dead through the rubble. The north is fairly unscathed, surprisingly. And as you start to descend, you feel the Captain Commander approaching from the north, though he's still a little ways off.
Mm.
You land down, and Hisame, sort of having struggled to her feet, stumbles and sort of falls over again. Well, this was the situation.
Do you need any help?
Yes, I would. He appreciates it. She's, do you want to go and try and heal her?
Yes.
Alright. Roll.
Guru will kind of give a nod and leave Hisame to Nozomi.
Okay. You're still focusing on the fire suppression then, so Nozomi, roll a d6. With advantage. Because you're not sure if there might still be effects around. Okay, 5. As you reach her, and sort of get her into a seated position with her back resting up against the rock, you notice not a particularly deep slash, but a fairly long one, cutting across her stomach. It'll need a fair bit of effort to heal, and probably better left to the fourth. However, battle healing in this situation would definitely help mend it at the basic level, so she's not in as much pain or whatever else.
Yes. I would try to.
Right. I believe the highest tier of Kaido you have access to would be tier 5.
Well, the Kaido is you can use any tire, right?
You can use
As
any,
long-
yes.
As long as you have the.
ESP, yeah. So you would be able to just repeat the tier 1 one over and over to try and increase to sort of get 10, 30, 60.
Is the fires like the major ones put out at this point?
Yeah.
Shigurinso will cancel and offer to help provide like just pure spiritual power if needed.
I mean, I have access. I have 46, so I could use the tire 9.
I can give you 76.
Fair.
Yes,
That
yeah,
should be
Shigure
enough for
has-
tier
Shigure has a
9s
lot.
without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you cancel the aura then? Move you over?
He will also give like a nod, half salute to Fukian as thanks for the help.
Fukian just nods and sort of heads over east to check on Stella. The two of you then trying your best to stabilize the Same.
Mm-hmm.
You're using a tier 9 one, you said?
Yeah, why not?
So 9 is 45, so that's almost all your SP.
Yep.
Down to 1. You rest your hand on the stomach and focus for a moment, pulling in from what you've learnt, and after a moment, the wound heals over completely. You sense there's still damage internally, but it's nothing life-threatening in battle, and she looked at it before. Excess can be given to units within 4 tiles of the original target, so you have 8 HP left to give to people around you, so that would probably be Shigure in this situation.
No.
I will also essentially do a charge and give that charge's SP worth to Nozomi.
Okay, so that would be 7, 14, 15, up to... So 15 to Nozomi, up to 16 then?
Yeah, and that's really fitting that it was 8, because that's exactly what Shigure needs to vote.
Yep.
Oh no, you already added that, sorry.
Yeah, I already added his thing, but he would be full if it happened again.
Sorry.
It's okay. Seijo, your minions finish scouting. To the west, one of them encounters a hand sticking out of the rubble. It doesn't seem to be responsive.
Okay.
It's not anyone you recognize, just from the hand alone. However, you'd have to make sure that attention was called to them so they could be looked at properly by other Shinigami. The one to the south...
Is it? Yeah, go on. So finish before I ask
the one to the south encounters people, nobody massively harmed. Mostly just people recovering from being knocked out by Juno.
Okay. So they're not in immediate danger? Okay.
Not to the south, no.
Alright, I'll alert others to the... What, maybe just somebody who's unconscious or not able to respond, and then I'll go over to that person and just kind of see if it's safe to start removing rubble, or if I need to wait.
It would be a few minutes travel away, so probably best to wait. However, your minion's already there, and your call is heard by Arvin, who snaps out of the almost trance she was in, just thinking, staring at where the Garganta had vanished. And sort of, I'll head over there and give him a hand. She sort of takes a few steps, pats you on the shoulder, and then kicks off, heading westward.
Okay.
As you will continue to deal with the aftermath. Hisama looks up at you, Shigure. Guess I really wasn't strong enough, huh?
Would seem to be the case.
Well, you've let yourself out from your own control until basically stretching by how you were acting. And so it will become worse than me.
I doubt so. Remind me, Shigure is not really exhausted, or like he's not spiritually exhausted by this to the same degree as some others.
No, he's still winded by when Kaido releases Resurrection, but he's not overly spent at the moment.
If so, I will take the opportunity now that it's calmed down and any immediate situations around us have somewhat been dealt with, to begin casting Silken Net of Black and White, 22 bridges, 66 crowning sash, footprints, distant thunder, pointed peaks, revolving grounds, nightly prostrations, sea of clouds, the pale ranks of troops complete the grand circle and surpass the heavens. Bakudo 77, Kente Kura. And I will try and essentially essentially establish a communication network between all captains that I can essentially connect to.
You sense...
Captains and lieutenants, essentially, so that it's essentially an open communication forum for any lieutenant and above.
Okay. You sense that, as you're doing this, you sense that one has already been cast by the Captain of the Fourth. Sane. However, the head captain isn't connected to it. So you reach him. You might surmise from this that she cast one during the attack to try and keep an open line of communication. But the head captain, for some reason, just didn't get to it.
If so, I will still trying to connect the head captain still, but I will alter its trajectory to target seated officers instead, since all lieutenant and captain seems to be connected already.
All right. After a few seconds, you start getting sort of spiritual pings as people start connecting to this spell you've cast.
This is third seat Kiyomitsu of the 5th Division. Who do I copy? Does anyone require immediate aid?
The head captain speaks first. All good here. I'm heading your way now. Stay put. Anyone else?
Understood.
And you hear a few sort of cries from the east and the south. The east of lots of wounded men over here, but those of us who are still alive will get through it fine. And from the south, few injuries, nothing major. I don't think they were taking us seriously. The west is suspiciously quiet.
I kind of look over to Seijo to kind of point this out, since he would have also probably said the thing he found out.
Yeah, he would have said before that he found someone to the west, so he just reconfirmed it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
At this point,
I try to reach specifically Ayasagawa.
Yumichika.
Yes.
Why him specifically?
Because he is probably the most combat-capable seated officer that is currently not out of commission or already here.
Yeah, Arven and Stella sort of got the network pings, but Stella's currently being dealt with these, so she denied it, and Arven connected to it but didn't say anything because she's still trying to get to the rubble.
Yeah, Yasha's already here as well, so, and his son is as well, so I assume that Ayasagawa is likely going to be the most combat-capable seated.
Yeah. You connect to him, sort of, "Oh, how unbeautiful." Sort of mutters that to himself as you try and ping him specifically. What do you need?
Well, I would like to call in a favor, in that it seems that we have some issues on the western side. If you could lead any units you can find over to there, I suspect it might not be as peaceful as the Pinks say. And you were, and this I specifically phrased to essentially bolster his ego in order to convince him. It would seem that you are the most combat-capable officer I can get hold of right now.
Oh, that's worrying. Well, I'll head over there.
All right, but keep a careful watch.
I wouldn't dream of not doing so. And he forcibly cuts you off. You sense a flare of spiritual energy as just a signal that he's made ready, essentially, and you sense he starts heading towards the west of you. As your minion returns from the south, a few rank and file Shinigami sort of stumbling behind it. The captain commander arrives from the north. At the same time as he arrives, you see Fukigen holding Stella by the shoulder, one hand pressed over her stomach with a healing kaido, just running in the background. She seems exhausted. The head captain takes one look at the scene, sees Ichigo standing there, having just sheathed his weapon. Sort of, well, needs to find this. Briefly on what you know, and I'll do the same afterwards. He sort of just looks around the whole group. anyone who
Wait.
wants.
Shiguru
What was
will
that?
kind of
What was
nod.
it?
Shiguru will nod to Seijo since Seijo was part of the whole thing.
Okay.
Rather.
Okay. I thought. Okay.
Because he wasn't part of the Wakamundo team, so he cannot debrief on that.
That's true. Okay. Yeah. I heard Sayo start to talk before you, and then you started talking, and I was like, okay, I gotta Sayo speak first, but you were just making it give it time to speak. Okay.
I was just going to ask where if I've moved on from where we are now at all.
No, we're still in this location.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Don't worry. He's just shown up here. So
Right.
yeah, you sort of just walk in a bit to get a bit closer, I guess.
Yeah.
Seijo, if you would be so kind as to debrief the head captain of the Wakamundo expedition, and then we can follow from there.
Sure. I can't remember specifics, so I'll just say that I debriefed because I can't remember.
That's all good. Yeah. So
Wow.
you went to Urahara's shop. He sent you through a Garganta to a ruined palace where one of the hollows pointed you in the right direction. You found a tree that was different from the rest. Went underground, then traveled back eastwards towards
Okay.
the entrance to the village where you encountered the huntress.
Got it. Okay.
Inside, you fought Juno, who then gave you a vision of the past. At which point Kaido showed up and she made you get out of there quickly.
Yeah.
And you arrived back at Urahara's shop just as Soul Society came under attack from Kaido.
Got it.
As he's done sort of, let's see, I'll have something formal written up later about this whole thing, but it sounds like it wasn't a waste of time. He looks to Nozomi, so what about the battle here? Anything you can tell? I can tell you have keen eyes.
Well, when we first arrived, we were more over in the east, and we helped Fukigen out a bit with some more rank and file hollows, but then we encountered the one known as the Huntress, and but Stella arrived shortly and took her on herself, more or less. So we could continue on, and then we encountered the foxes, who, well, more or less tried to, while attacking, not do as much damage, at least not to people. But then we went to this area, and, well, Kaido was waiting for us. That went, well, almost very, very badly.
See,
One kind of-
thank you for that. I'll request a full report later if necessary, but he sort of looks between everyone here, sort of to Stella, who's, despite her damaged state, still has the occasional flicker of lightning coming off her body, or to looks to Yasha, who's just sort of standing there looking within himself, or then around to Hisame, who's, despite being healed, is still being supported by, at this point, probably being supported by you and Shigure. Sort of,
Shiguro will kind of go, considering that there might be some parallels required to be drawn to previous classified information. I shall take it upon myself to write a report for you within the week.
He nods. Don't stress it. Somehow I don't think it's going to be that urgent. He sort of calls out. Alright. Anyone who took any damage to the fourth, get looked at. He sort of looks at Ichigo. You, with me. As the two of them start to head north, you hear a ping to the west. From Arvin, Shiguri. There's no one alive over here. Just dead bodies under the rubble. Looks like Kai didn't spare anyone in his path.
What are the casualties?
No seated officers that I can find yet, but probably she takes a second and you feel her sort of reaching out her spiritual energy to the west of you. Probably low triple digits, rank and file. It's all through them like paper. Got to work on clearing up this area for now. Tell head captain to send someone over. But the head captain, who was also connected, just says back to her, I'll get the lieutenants on it. Don't worry. Arvin just nods and goes back to shifting through the rubble. You all drop out. Those of you still left in Shikai drop out of it. Seijo's last two minions vanishing. Nozomi's scarf flutters away in the wind and dissipates, but not before you hear a voice in your head. We're getting too old for this. Hisame, while not forcibly dropped out of Shikai, does so now with a quiet sigh of relief. And aside from Ichigo and Arvin, who would probably follow along later, you all head to the 4th Division to get looked at. Here. All the trees are a bit different, but it's this section doesn't matter that much. You all go through the 4th. Shigure, while you're not too badly damaged, you've got a few things you have to stay for a couple of days. Stella, at a stern word from Isame, is forced to rest for at least a week. Citing Bankai stress, essentially. Isame takes one look at her and puts her into urgent care immediately. Despite being physically fit to fight, she took a nasty enough hit that she's gonna be out for a while. As she sees the worry on your face, she walks past of, I'll take care of her, Shigure, don't worry.
He'll kind of just give a sigh and then, well, I shall trust you on that. And then essentially just, while not leaving the 4th barracks, he will essentially head to a calm corner and start writing that report as a way to essentially spend the time because he would get restless if he's just staying put.
Yeah. Seijo, surprisingly, they can't seem to find anything wrong with you.
What was I? Was I supposed to be injured? Was I?
Well, you were eventually, but then you healed up from it completely.
Yeah.
Whether or not you find this strange is up to you.
What, that I just regenerated from the battle?
Yeah, but unlike other people who, even after the battle, still have injuries that need to be treated, you don't.
I don't think Seijo would think about it too hard, but maybe other people might.
Fair enough.
It's just like, well.
Other 3 players roll perception. Just roll d12.
I'm gonna do for Yasha first,
Okay.
but I'm also gonna Is it D12?
Yeah.
I'm also gonna question. Does Shigure get benefit because he might be more knowledgeable about how things work?
Potentially. I just roll d12 and we'll see if you need a benefit or not. No, you're fine. So Nozomi, They look at they sort of give you a once over. A few
Yeah.
things that are fixed pretty quickly, a couple of hours. You sort of see them muttering about. You sort of hear someone muttering about Seijo, but it's not specifically about him. You just sort of hear, "Can't believe someone could go through that unscathed," and you don't really catch anything else about it.
Okay.
Yasha, you get checked over. There's no major injuries again, like Nozomi. It's just a few hours.
I mean, most of his major injuries would have been in Mori's stance, which means that he has essentially hollow-like regeneration during
Yeah.
that.
So, but yeah, they give but sort of a couple of one of the healers gives you a weird look once they sort of start probing for deeper injuries and encounter the hollow core. Sort of, you might be better going over to the visor. They could probably find something we can't. As you're
What's it mean,
leaving,
sorry?
no, this is for Yasha.
Okay.
This is just people's reaction to you. So as the Yasha's leaving, he sees someone shaking their head at Seijo, sort of confused. Whether he thinks on it more or not is his own choice.
Seijo wouldn't.
Yeah, Seijo wouldn't. That's fine.
He'd just go back to his kitchen and start baking bread again.
Yeah, okay, fair. In that case, as everyone else is sort of getting sorted out, then you're just sort of whistling your way back to your kitchen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
As soon as there's a moment's respite, he's back to baking.
Shiguru will also send the like 2-3 pages of notes to pass over to Hisagi in the night.
Okay. Yeah, as you doing that, you saw the same thing that Yasha did. Sort of confusion about Seijo's regenerative capabilities. Fukigen, mostly unhurt but a little spiritually exhausted, so he's only there for about an hour. At some point he excuses himself and says, "I need to go talk to the head captain," and just doesn't elaborate and heads off. Arvin enters the division, gets checked, but there's nothing major happening. She just wanders around the place, checking with everybody, but then eventually finds Stella, and you just hear a cry of, "What were you thinking?" And just a sort of weak muttering of, "Well, I was hardly going to leave anyone to die, wasn't I?" And this just devolves into a sort of half-hearted argument from both sides. Those of you who are released head back to your divisions for the day with a note from the head captain saying that he wants to talk to everyone tomorrow at the earliest. Everyone who can leave the 4th at least. Yasha, you head over to the Visored in their little corner of the 12th where they've set up camp. What do you do upon arriving at their suspiciously out of place warehouse?
I will essentially use an empty burst of essentially sending out like a hollow signature to make it more easily to detect for others.
Yeah. As you do so, the door slides open as if that was some sort of passcode, and you just walk inside, I guess. On the inside, you find the place mostly empty, aside from Hachi, who gives you a look and, well, I wasn't quite expecting to see you here.
I've heard about the fact that he then kind of gets a pang of bad memories and goes, "My apologies. If I'd been stronger back then, you and your friends would probably not be in this situation."
Hachi sort of waves his hand. I think most of us are over all of that by now. It's been a century and a half after all. Don't worry yourself too
I
much.
guess time really flies when you're out in the woods.
I did gather you
Feels
were
like
missing for a while.
Feels like yesterday.
Yeah. Was there something you needed?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
was reading.
feel like, well, I have some. He kind of tries to find the words and goes, I believe my thought spirit might have experienced a similar altercation to what occurred to yours.
He sort of raises his eyebrows as if to say, "Tell me something I don't already know."
While, well, because of that, I don't believe normal training will fully unleash its potential, and I've recently encountered that its potential seems limited.
He thinks to himself for a moment and says, "I'll talk to Shinji, see if I can sort something out for you." We're busy at the moment with all of this, and he sort of waves his hand in the general vicinity of outside. But give him a few days, and he should be available to help.
Understood.
Anything else?
He kind of looks around the warehouse a bit and goes, well, I suppose I don't really have anything myself else to communicate. Though it would indeed seem that, well, I somehow feel relieved that some of the old guard is still around.
Fair enough. Can't say I blame you. He sort of scratches his head a little bit and thinking. You made me think of something. If I can find out what it is, I'll pass it on to Shinji for his meeting with you.
I see.
He goes over to a bookshelf and sort of starts scanning it, trying to find something, and you say that as your cue to leave, unless you've got anything else to say.
He will kind of leave while he'll also mumble a thing as he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, supposedly we might be the old guard, though. I'm quite satisfied with how durable the younger seem to be now. Unlike us.
He doesn't respond directly, but you sense something in his spiritual energy that you can't quite place. Let's see. So Seijo's just stress baking basically at this point, I guess.
You might try making toast. After having burnt bread for so long, he's going to start messing around with toasting bread.
Roll 3d6.
Okay.
Okay. Your first attempt. How do you like your toast, actually, out of character?
I like it. It's kind of like middle brown.
Okay, so sort of just before it starts getting carbonated.
Yeah.
Okay. So your first piece of toast comes out fairly well. It's a bit underdone, for Seiji would believe. He takes a bite out of it, Appreciates the crunch, but feels like it can be something better can be done with it. However, the second time he does it, it comes out a bit overdone, and he takes a bite of it and sort of shudders as he gets a mouthful of carbon.
Yeah.
The third one comes out the same. However, he realizes he can just scrape off the carbon, and underneath it still feels a bit overdone, but doesn't taste quite as bad.
Yeah, that just reminds me of a time when I was making cheese on toast on the grill,
Oh God.
and I forgot that the bread was under the grill,
No.
and until smoke started billowing out of the kitchen into the living room.
Oh no.
And I got to the grill, and I'd only done one side of the bread right, so I got it out. It was so burnt it started to look blue. You know when you burn something and the carbon looks blue,
Oh God.
and the other side was completely untoasted, so it was just like raw, untoasted bread on one side and just black blue carbon on the other side.
The duality of man.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I
Yeah,
feel like
you decide to make toast after your recent burning experiences.
Yeah.
Nozomi, what are your plans for the rest of the day you've got, although there's not much of it left at this point?
Probably reading.
Alright, you head back to your division and dive into your books. You can't quite get Miu's comment out of your mind, and it's you're not sure what if it has a deeper meaning in any sense, but it unsettles you a little bit. You're not sure why. Shigure's holed up in the fourth. Then, the next day arrives, and the four of you congregate in outside the head captain's office. Shigure having just been released, or probably having forced himself to be released for the purposes of this meeting. Would your report be done by this point, probably?
Probably, since he doesn't have anything else to do, and he would get restless if he wasn't doing
okay.
something.
Yeah, so you guys all end up at the head captain's office. You've healed to full at this point. As you all show up here, no, that's the wrong one. 26. As you all show up to the office, Fukigen exits. He gives you a look and sort of, hope you're ready, and just heads off. You'll make your way inside.
Yeah.
And the head captain.
So you're just probably smelling slightly of burnt toast.
Probably.
Shigure will.
Just the night.
Yeah, Shigure will hand over the report, including a small kind of mumble under his breath.
Mm-hmm.
There was some interesting occurrences as an aftermath that was discovered in the fourth barracks when treating some of us, so I included that as well.
I see. Good to know, thank you. There we go. Probably does all of that now. He looks between the four of you, and there's no easy way to say this. With your involvement in things thus far, I don't think it's safe for you anymore. Regardless of whether they're going after you specifically or not. You're all too much involved in this by now, and we can't turn a blind eye to this problem that we're having to deal with. I'm going to be making some contacts in the next few days. But if everything goes smoothly, I want you all to start training for Bankai. He is not aware that you've already done so, but he's saying it regardless.
Yasha
thanks.
will take. You go first, Sayo.
I was going to say, I don't think Sage has done any preparation for Bankai that I
Not
know of.
specifically, but baking bread is his way of doing it, so
Oh, Bankai. Okay.
maybe.
Yasha will politely stand and go. Captain Commander, while I do already possess a Bankai, I believe there are ways that I can strengthen it further, though I feel like it might require certain allowances when it comes to power limits being released.
The reason I bet you if these plans work out, I don't think you have to worry about either of those things. Although, with how communication's going these days, it might take days or a few weeks to get everything sorted.
Furthermore,
I'm not sure if they can
for the safety of it all, I would request the complete abolishment of any current scheduled duty for certain individuals that I would preferably have present in case things go out of control.
Once again, with the plans that Fukikin and I came up with, I don't believe that'll be necessary. However, he thinks to himself, if you plan to do any training of your own beforehand, then I'll keep their schedules open.
Particularly, I would request the aid of... and he kind of goes... Hachigen Usoda, Hirako Shinji, Mashiro Kuna, and in worst case scenario, Captain Soifon.
He sort of squints his eyes a little bit, sort of denied on that last count. Just gonna have enough on our hands.
I see.
He sort of leans back and sighs. We're not set in the old ways anymore, Yasuhide. Something like that isn't necessary for what you've got to deal with.
I see.
He also looks to back to the whole group at this point, but also mostly at Shigure. There's some more bad news as well, although I wish I didn't have to give it. I wish this wasn't even news in the first place. Surprisingly, or perhaps unsurprisingly, Ichiro Kurosaki is going to be absent from Japan for the next few months. Something about family holidays and not allowing our squabbles to get in the way. Which, to be fair, we asked enough of him already.
Iguro will also go. Well, considering who his father is, I believe disobeying might be difficult even for him.
It's a family holiday after all. Besides, Urahara's said he'll try to sort out an agreement if necessary. But, regardless, Ichigo told me that Urahara tried to stop him from coming here in the first place, and while Urahara has no remorse in doing so, given everything Ichigo's done for us in the past, and how we try not to rely on his help in recent decades, it was well that he came when he did. We're going to need to get stronger if we're going to try and deal with Kaido. The rest of the captains are going to be training as well, but it's quite possible that he may simply avoid their confrontations altogether and come after you four specifically. Plus, Stellarav and Hisame and Fukigen and so on.
Considering everything that has happened, Shiguro will stand up politely as well again and point out one thing.
Mhm.
If I seem to understand, at least grasp at what would be required, I would like to put in a small request.
Motions for you to continue.
Until this current threat with Kaido is dealt with, at least, I would like to request special permissions according to, and then he kind of lines up multiple codes of law and stuff.
Yeah, about halfway through reading off all these codes, the head captain just pulls out a bottle of sake. Yes, get on with it, and just drinks straight from.
Noticing that the head captain seems to have lost focus, Shiguro will kind of push up his glasses and say, "In other words, I require a permission of pardon for any and all collateral damage."
He's taken a swig of the sake as he hears this, and he goes, and manages not to spill a drop somehow. But regardless, he's not in the best state. He spends a moment coughing to try and clear his lungs. God, that burns. Did I hear you right?
Yes, I believe, considering the defensive capabilities of our enemy, our destructive power needs to be increased tremendously.
He sort of thinks for a second, and then, I think you're the first Shinigami in over 1,000 years of history of this organization to ever ask for a pardon for collateral damage.
Well, maybe so, but
It's
it's easier to deal with if it's requested beforehand.
He just waves his hand. Given how good you've been for the past 20 years, must have been taking some level of restraint to try and cause as little damage as you have. I think we can forego the paperwork just this once.
Figure will give a bow and give a slight smirk towards his blade.
Okay. You feel a sort of hum of approval, but not much else at the moment. The head captain sort of one last thing for the moment at least. You're not to leave Serete alone. If you go outside to the Rukon district, you're to travel with at least one seated officer at all times, and if you go to the human world, the same applies. If you wish to go together to the human world, then if you split up when you go there, then you should take one guide for each of you. Even if such precautions may be unnecessary if our enemy takes time to recover from the blow that was dealt to them. Better safe than sorry. He sort of looks specifically to Seijo. Do I make myself clear?
Yes?
He nods. Good. I know that you frequent the bakery in Karakura town. It's on record as all things are in that town these days. Can't be too careful given what kind of place it is.
Should I be suspicious of that place?
Oh no, not at all, but going there alone might leave yourself open to attack from our enemy. And I feel as if you wouldn't necessarily react in the best way if such a place was destroyed. So, take Arvin or someone else with you the next time you go there until the threat is dealt with.
Okay.
He just looks to Shigure and the other two rather. If anyone's going to go visit Urahara, your guide will accompany you there, but after that, they're probably free to go about their own terms. Although they'll take you back to the Senkaiman afterwards. Urahara's shop is a safe haven, but it doesn't mean that outside it's safe. He sort of claps his hands once, almost ceremoniously. Right. I'll keep you all updated as to how things are going with the arrangements we're going to be making. Focus on training yourselves over the next few days or weeks, however long it takes. I gather that some of you have started training in certain skills with high-ranking members of the Gote, along with perhaps former members outside it. I would suggest you continue to hone those skills.
Got it. More bread.
He nods. Picks up his bottle of sake again. And look, sort of as he takes a drink, he glances at Shigure, hoping he's not about to say something that'll make him have to catch himself again.
He kind of goes instead. But I shall provide you with an extra bottle as collateral, so to speak.
He finishes his draft and sort of, that would be appreciated. Although, given the situation, I don't think the Now's going to be taking them from me anytime soon. I think even Sheen understands the power of a good drink.
Well, you see that I seem to have found a line of supply to a winery up in the Echigo territory of the human world. I suppose that would be to your taste.
There is another sort of, if you can get it back to Seirete in a drinkable state, then that would be appreciated, thank you. It would be nice to taste something from the human world. It's been a while since I last visited there. And, well, head captain's duties and everything.
Yes.
He sort of waves his free hand. Dismissed. If anyone's got any questions, they're welcome to stay behind. Everything okay on your end,
In the other kitchen.
What was that, sorry, saying?
I was just saying, Seijo would just say, if you need me, I'll be in my kitchen,
Okay.
and then leaves.
Okay. Yeah, I saw you dip from the roll 20 quickly, so I wasn't sure if everything was okay, but you're back. So
Me? I did?
Maya did.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but you're back, so it's fine.
I was probably just away from the tab.
Ah, okay. I didn't realise that it was by tab. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that was weird.
Okay. Anyway, you
I
will
didn't-
head back to your division unless you've got something to ask the head captain then.
Shiguro will just ask some questions about the usage of area affecting Sanpakuto abilities, since it's considering his Shikai, he's expecting that his Bankai might follow the suit, and thus the head captain who has an area affecting Bankai might have some knowledge about ways to deal with that.
The head captain, once he realizes where your train of thought's going, sort of his eyes go a bit darker and sort of. Once you know what it is, then we can discuss. If it's anything
He will
like
kind
mine, well,
He will kind of nod, but also point out that he fears that it might be somewhat similar, considering his Shikai already affects both allies and himself and enemies.
he nods, but sort of doesn't seem too worried for now. Given better not to speculate. Anyone else wanted to ask him anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
Seiju's already hopped off, so that's fine. And Yasha's probably not that. So, okay. In that case, we get to the main part of the downtime session then. You've all got time free for whatever you wish to do. I want everyone to roll a d12 for the order in which we'll do this.
okay.
I can't do turn on, never mind. 6, 8, 5, 7. Okay, so Seijo first.
I don't know, he
It's
might
in
just
the
go back
order.
to the kitchen for now, but I don't know if he wants to try
It's
and get
also,
more
funnily enough,
inspiration.
in the order they left.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it? That's funny.
You've got essentially at least 2 weeks of free time now.
2 weeks.
So if you wish to obtain another bread type from the bakery, you can do
Yeah.
so.
What about the place? I remember there was a place very early on that apparently the red spirit god thing was like, no, I know this place.
Ah, that was the ruins to the north.
I might go there during my time off as well.
You need to take a guide with you, but
Hmm.
otherwise, or rather, someone to help guard you in case of attack. Otherwise, you're welcome to go back to the north. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
his lieutenant doesn't really usually have isn't really busy a lot of the time. So
Who's not busy? Sorry.
his lieutenant,
Yeah, true.
either of them,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Either of them.
I have a lieutenant.
Yeah, you have your squad is very unique in that we have the lieutenant and we have the super lieutenant self-assigned.
I don't even know who they are.
That's okay. The super lieutenant is I believe it's Masha, isn't it?
Yes.
So I forget, and the regular lieutenant was
Hisagi.
Yes. So you talk to the head cap. You sort of go through the mention of the head captain essentially, and your squad captain sort of pinches his nose and take Master and Hisage with you.
Sure.
You're greeted by two familiar faces to you, though you haven't interacted with them much. Hisagi is sort of dark-haired, very reserved, almost not quite brooding, but certainly depressive man who seems to take life far too seriously. In contrast with the other lieutenant, a green-haired woman who shorter than you and seems to take life far too unseriously. She's very excitable, and as you leave the north gate, she sort of, "Oh, where are we going?"
There's some ruins north.
Hmm.
For a while since I've been there, and seems important. So
She sort of nods 3 or 4 times, and spends the rest of the journey sort of alternating between different types of not quite dances, but certainly she seems to be very energetic and not quite able to keep herself still. Hisagi, completely used to this and keeping his distance a little bit just to avoid being elbowed in the stomach. Keeps to himself mostly, unless you wanted to approach him with a question.
no.
Alright. We arrive at the map then. The two lieutenants, Hisagi says sort of, I'll go to the north and try and keep watch from there. And Masha is sort of, okay, I'll stay here. She entertains herself by sort of jumping up and down this ledge here multiple times. Oh, not wide. There you go. She just jumps up and down this ledge multiple times, like she's sort of training, basically. Hisagi just walks forward off the slope and just walks in the air above and just sort of is pacing around up to the north.
Okay. I'll just meander around the ruins, just see if any particular spot kind of attracts my attention or.
Okay. You don't feel anything specifically, any particular point, but you feel a stir sort of from the gods inside, sort of. You came back, I see.
Am I able to? Can I talk to him?
Yeah, you're able to talk to him normally, but normally sword spirits are fairly quiet. However, in this location, he seems to be a bit more talkative than usual.
I don't normally talk to you, so is there something about this place that makes you want to talk?
I'm not entirely sure. I think perhaps so trails off. We can talk normally, but here it seems easier.
A bit more time here, we might figure out why.
Maybe so. As you're wandering around, you notice the cave to the northeast.
Oh, I'll just mill around and just explore.
Okay.
Just see if there's anything interesting around.
As you at some point you sort of sit down, probably just
Yeah.
take it in, and aside from the distant hup 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 of Maestro jumping up and down,
Yeah.
it's fairly quiet and peaceful actually. And you find yourself closing your eyes. You're back in your inner world. The kitchen that, or no, the top of the hill rather, where you found the sword. You, I believe in this place once again you're yourself rather than essentially what you've been turned into by your god's influence.
Hmm.
You, look out over the hill, but you see something that you hadn't noticed before. While it seems to be both too far off, but also right up close, you're not quite sure how it physically seems to work. You see a building, to the north of the hill that you hadn't noticed before. It's not directly to the north, it's slightly off to the side, but...
Okay.
You sort of look at it for a moment, and you realize that part of it is in the same shape as the ruins that you're currently in. Your swords... You hear a sort of footsteps behind you, and your sword spirit moves up next to you and sits down, folding its forearms across itself as it looks out over the horizon. Sometimes I forget the past myself. It's been so long and so many things have happened. The spirit realm is full of all sorts of things that people don't understand or have forgotten about or never even knew in the first place. I suppose that several thousand years ago, there was once a society here that knew of me and cared for me in some way, but as time went on, I was forgotten about, and in the state you found me in, perhaps forgotten about entirely until now.
How long ago that was, I wonder?
I believe it was probably a few years before you became a Shinigami, so you would have had to have traveled to Seirete after finding it, and having covered. So I'd say 5 years ago you found it,
Okay.
at latest. Could be sooner. You sort of, it sits in silence, just looking out over the view, and it's a bit peaceful. If you've nothing to say, then it would just be sort of contemplative silence for a while.
Yeah. I might ask, like, if he can remember the time when people remembered him, I guess.
He shakes his head, not clearly. The memory of one such as myself is based on the memories of those who existed back then. As they move on, so do I, and while I retain my sense of self, I don't remember what people don't remember about me, if that makes sense.
Oh. It's almost like you are a product of people's knowledge about yourself.
Indeed, I suppose you could say that. My own knowledge about myself keeps me in a state of being alive at the most basic level, but beyond that, it's up to those around me. He looks at you. I believe your head captain told you to start training for Bankai.
Yeah, I don't really know where to start, though.
You've already started.
Oh, well, that's handy.
He sort of laughs a little bit, very quietly, almost sort of unnoticeably a laugh. You're not even sure if it was one. Well, I suppose with a view like that, fair enough. He sort of looks back out the horizon again. All the different types of bread that you've learnt to make from different cultures around the world in the human realm. More of those would go a long way towards your goal of this. I believe that if you continue to do so, perhaps my power itself will grow naturally, and in the end, you will attain the state that Shinigami called Bankai.
So I just have to keep baking new bread.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have no reason not to.
I would suggest at some point before the head captain's plans get in order that you visit that place again, see if you can find something new there. Although, despite the variety, there are only a few types of bread in the world. It's not infinite. You'd have to.
Well,
Try.
I can make flat bread and traditional Japanese bread, and hedgehog bread.
Yes. He sort of thinks to
Maybe
himself for a moment. I never considered this before, but those things that the man showed us, I believe he called them pastries. Those might be a type of bread to some people, would they not?
I guess so. It's still a dough, isn't it?
Yes, perhaps. He thinks to himself. Perhaps we need to loosen the definition of what constitutes as bread.
I shall take these ideas to the bakery.
You've given me much to think about. Thank you for coming here. He stands up as he says this.
Okay.
I look forward to seeing what you choose to create next. And rests one of his hands on your shoulder as he walks back down the hill. And as he does so, and sort of your border of your distance in your inner world begins to close around you. The church or temple, whatever it is, fading out from view, and you wake up. Hisagi, sort of sitting on the wall above you, sort of looks down. Good nap?
Yeah, I got more out of this than I thought.
That's good. He climbs to his feet. If you've nothing else to do here, perhaps we should head back.
Yeah, I'm ready to go back, yeah.
Alright, let's go. He starts walking on the air and again touches back on ground just at the top of the slope here. Masha is still doing her steps, doesn't notice until he sort of grabs her by the back of her outfit and around her neck and just sort of stops her from jumping up. So she just goes, "What?" and falls backwards. The two of them and you make your way back to Seirete then. And we will do your Karakura town visit later.
Yep.
Alright. It is Yasha's turn. Okay. You receive a missive asking to meet you in the forest below Sogyoku Hill.
He will head there.
You arrive there to see Hachi and Shinji waiting for you. Shinji sort of takes one look at you, sort of, this is the one.
Captain Hirako.
Yasha.
Well, Well, I've not forgotten the name. It's been a while since I was referred to as such.
Well, what can I say? He sort of grins his classic Cheshire Cat smile and sort of... It's been a while since... anything, really. Sort of trails off, not quite sure he was going with that. I gather you wanted me for training of some sort.
Yes, that would be the case.
Perhaps we should head to the training cave. Or whatever it is that it's called these days. An open secret.
He gives a nod and follows.
As you enter, you feel the heat of the sun from inside. However, you can't see anything yet. How do you react? Every step you take, the air gets hotter.
Well, unless our good former commander has somehow resurrected, I believe that this would be... Yes, this is likely Kitsunebi, I would assume.
Shinji sort of shakes his head, goes to the mouth of the cave and sort of, Oi! Can you cool it off in there? After a moment, the heat begins to recede. And, he sort of waits, giving you a look sort of, if she's not ready to show us yet, then let her keep it to herself. A few minutes later, Arven makes her way out of the cave. She seems composed, but spiritually exhausted. Sorry to take up such a valuable training space. She looks between the three of you and sort of, more of Stella's crew, I see. Well, I shan't keep you. I better get back to the fourth and yell at her some more. She, makes her way past, but, pats Hachi on the shoulder as she goes past him. And he sort of nods at her in return. Shinji makes his way inside and gestures for you to follow.
I follow.
Roll D12 perception. As you turn the corner, the room seems normal. However, making your way down to the central area, you see a part you couldn't see before from the top of the ladder. That, there's a part of the wall that's been melted away, turned to lava and solidified into obsidian. It seems as if something extremely hot was striking the same spot over and over again. Shinji sort of looks to you and then... Right. How do you want to do this? He hasn't drawn his sword yet.
Well, considering the current state, it's, as far as I can tell, a matter of needing to become more flexible. And as such, I believe the best way to do so is putting myself in situations where I'm demanded as such.
I see. He sort of thinks to himself, yes, perhaps I could help with that. Thinking for a moment and, right, I see what we can do. Okay. He sort of motions to Hachi to set up the barriers, and, as he begins to chant, you see a sort of dark box surrounding you, rather large. The outside of it becomes full of sort of 4, 5, 6 different walls of different types. And once he's done, the north, south, east, and west walls all have figures on them similar to the four lords of legend, with the top and the bottom being creatures you didn't recognize. Shinji pulls out his sword. Now, we won't be fighting seriously, but you're going to be pushing yourself regardless. So, and he sort of says, "Don't worry about letting loose either. I can take you on myself easily, but Hachi's there in case anything goes wrong with that."
If so, that is exactly as I would have wanted it. And he will just straight bunker immediately.
Yeah, that's what Shinji's going to suggest. Okay, he sees you going to bunker and sort of, right, show me what you can do. Just standing there, not doing anything. Sword sort of pointed downwards lazily.
He will open with going into fire stance and launching himself at the enemy.
Okay. Shinji sort of tilts his head to avoid the strike. Sides and then sidesteps the next one. I see. Something that sacrifices all defense for offense. What else?
He will then, after a short period of vulnerability after the strike, switch to wind stance in an attempt to hit the evasive Shinji.
Shinji, seeing you become more agile and sort of steps up his game a little bit. Instead of simply taking the path of least effort, he begins to sort of properly dodge your attacks of jumping up or behind you or backstepping quickly. And that one makes it easy for you to hit your opponent, I see. What's next?
He will dig himself in and prepare for a retaliation by going into the mountain.
Shinji, seeing this, sort of walks up to you and sort of just pokes you in the forehead. It's not particularly hard, but he's just seeing. Defensive, and then... Is that all?
He will then swap out into forest stance, take a step back, and go. As far as I've understood, you and yours are capable of zero, are you not? And he will essentially stand himself ready.
Shinji lazily flicks his wrist and just launches a Zero at you. It's pretty weak. He didn't even take the time to charge it up, but it hits you regardless. He sort of... The moment it does, he realizes and sort of... and this one heightens your regenerative capabilities. It's a good merge of Shinigami and Hollow powers. But if I'm assuming correctly, you can only enter one stance at a time.
That would seem to be the restrictions.
Do you have any idea why?
Though, I believe it might have to do with my sword spirit, you see.
How so?
Well, in a sense, he's a prisoner of his own situation. Shackled by his ways. I believe that's a conscious idea is within my head causing it.
So you think that... He sort of thinks for a moment. Have to let go of the old ways, so to speak?
I believe so.
Well... If this doesn't teach you to be more flexible, it will at least confuse the hell out of you. And he pulls his sword up and sort of... This isn't going to be a pleasant experience for you, but... He sort of lowers his voice to a knife edge. Try and kill me. Collapse. Sakanade. His sword begins to shift, and the handle of it turns into a hollow circle. He holds the sword. He grips the sword now above the circle, having now moved it to the pommel. Do you smell something sweet, by any chance?
I sense illusions.
As you say this, the world around you begins to shift, before suddenly inverting in color, and once it returns, you're standing upside down, your head touching the ground. Or at least so it appears to you. Shinju says, I'm not going to explain this to you. Figure it out yourself. I trust that you have the capability to do so. Besides, if I explained to you, this training wouldn't have as much meaning. He dashes towards you, not using his sword, but simply a single outstretched finger to poke you.
He will attempt to go into a mountain, but likely end up in fire.
No, it's still end up a mountain.
All right.
It only reverses your sight. Remember, it doesn't reverse your spiritual perception. But as he goes to poke what you think is your head, you find your leg. You feel a sensation on your leg instead. No, we can't have you standing around like that. As he sort of backs off. You're gonna have to move around in this world to get anything done, Yasha. He puts
If you say so.
He puts the Cheshire
He'll
Cat
go-
up on his face then.
He'll go into wind stance and try to sweep around him.
Just in a circle around you.
Essentially, because he's not unsure where his quote-unquote opponent is located.
You spin around you and you don't see you see him move, but you're not sure if he would have if he moved to dodge or if he just moved to make you think he was trying to dodge. You see him standing below you. In the air. Sort of. Oh, come now, that's too easy for you. He sort of reaches a hand out and sort of makes a come at me gesture.
Going into fire, follow after, essentially try and attack.
In the direction you think he is, only to crash into the barrier.
Well, I think I get the point.
Good. Now, let's keep going. And with that, we'll move on to Nozomi.
Yes.
What do you wish to do with your time? Actually, before then, you remember that, not necessarily today, but over the next few days, a few more Shunko sessions will be held to see how people have improved and teach them the technique properly. So you can go along to that, not necessarily today, but when you're ready to, if you wanted to.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Okay. Just that then? Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, couple of days after the start of this session, this part then, sort of day or two, like 2 or 3 days after you met the Captain Commander, you head to the 2nd Division Barracks. Yoriichi is currently sort of stretching outside. Ah, Nozomi. Hello again.
Greetings.
Back for another class?
Yes. If that's possible.
Yoriichi thinks to herself. We've got some time before it starts. Why don't you show me what you can do before we go into it proper?
Sounds like a good idea.
She nods, sort of. Follow me. She takes you to the same courtyard you were in before. Some members of the 2nd Division doing their own training there, but as they see Yoriichi, they sort of bow to her and then resume it. Yoriichi sort of thinks to herself as to what to put you through to start with, and then, let's see. There's a few obstacles over there. I could try that. Oh, this works. She points to one wall in the corner of the courtyard where you see there's a small line painted on the wall. Starting from that point, run around the edge of the courtyard. behind all the trees, there's a lot of different traps that we use for training. They reset automatically, but no one's yet developed a trap that can catch someone in flash step. If you can make it past all of them, I think you'll be fast enough.
Fair enough.
Start there, make your way back around to me. She goes over to sort of the other side of the same wall. So essentially you're starting in the southwest, then there's a door to the south, and she's in the southeast. It would take you hazard a guess that walking around the edge of the courtyard would probably take you about 4 or 5 minutes. So with flash step, you could probably cut that down to about maybe half a minute, if unless you're even faster maybe. But of course you'd have to avoid everything on the way. And you have no idea what's hiding behind the trees. Alright. Go when you're ready then. I'm going to change the music because we are no longer meditating. Where are we? Is it? I think it was unique. I think it's this one. Yes, it's this one. Good. All right. Whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Roll D12 advantage.
Okay.
All right. 8. You make you enter a sort of not quite a casual flash step, but certainly speeds that you're comfortable with. And you make your way behind the first set of trees. As you do so, you step on a pressure plate, and a gigantic spiked log swings down in front of you. It barely passes over your head as you move past it, and you realize that you're not fast enough to be able to keep avoiding traps if you keep it up at this speed.
No.
Just barely managed to dodge that one. Do you try and push yourself?
Yes.
Alright, you come out of that group of trees. Roll another 2d12 for perception in this case. 5, okay. You head into a clump of a sort of small walled area in the northwestern corner. Having come up, you started southwest, came around the corner, went into the trees, sort of on the west, on the lower western wall. Now you're in the top. Now you're in the top left. So as you make your way around that corner, you fail to notice a tripwire in front of you. You feel something snag on your ankle and roll 2d12.
Oh.
Okay, 11. You're not sent sprawling, rather, it catches your momentum and you sort of start to fall forward. However, you remember your lessons previously, and forcing spiritual energy into your feet. You almost kick off from the tripwire itself, doing a front flip and landing on your feet, almost cat-like. You use this to pause for a second, gathering energy before kicking off from the ground, still with this energy in your feet. Roll 2d12 again. Okay, 2 10s. As you're leaving this clump of trees, you see what looks like a small box, or rather a tower of boxes against the wall. You feel another pressure underneath your foot, and as you shoot out from the trees, arrows fire out of the boxes and sort of land and sort of thunk into the tree behind you. These weren't even close to you. On top of pushing yourself harder, and you've also activated partial Shunko, and you were past the boxes before the arrows were even halfway out of them. Yorichi calls to you, the rest of the north wall is safe, and she just wants to see how fast you can push yourself before you reach the eastern corner. So, do you try and push? How hard do you try and push yourself? Like as hard as you can go, or just try and speed up generally, but trying to just feel out your boundaries.
Going all in.
All right. You try and run as fast as you can, and it takes you seconds to cross the remainder of the distance. You almost end up crashing into the wall. However, roll 2d12 again.
Yes.
4. Okay. As you reach the wall, you try and do something that you've not tried to do before, where you put a foot on the wall in front of you, try and divert your momentum sideways to the north wall, and then kick off of that, essentially doing a 270 degree spin. To try and revert your momentum. You manage to cancel your momentum by hitting the first one, however, when you try and land on the north wall and keeping it, you haven't practiced before, so you slip a little. You lose some of your momentum and sense stumbling, but you keep your footing heading down the eastern wall. The last batch of trees takes up the entire southern half of the eastern wall, and as you enter it, you notice that it's filled with several small spaces. You'd have to essentially try and dive through them to get through them while still at full speed. Roll 60-12. First 2 for the first gap, second 2 for the second gap, third 2 for the third gap.
Yes. Oh, sorry. How was that again?
Just stick 60-12, no spaces, /R. And...
Not any roll or anything.
No. Just that, but without the dot.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so 2, 1, so 2, 4, and 11. So you get to the first gap, and you try and sort of dive through it almost. However, you're not used to these sorts of horizontally focused jumps in Shunko, and you sort of hit the side of it instead, bruising your shoulder a bit. You shake it off, and sort of go through the sort of side passage that they built in for situations like these. So tap your feet a bit to get the circulation, the spiritual energy circulating back again, and make your way to the second gap. You're a bit slower, so it's easy to control, and you manage to get through it just about. You do scrape the the tops of your feet on it though, as you try and dive through. You land in a crouch, just check to make sure you haven't injured anything major, and then take the rest of the gap between here and the third jump to build up speed. Having done a bit of practice now, you make it through the third gap no issue. Landing in almost in a handstand, sort of pushing off the ground, doing another front flip and keeping your momentum as you keep going towards the southern wall. Do you want to try the same sort of 270 degree trick again? As you reach the last corner?
Sure.
Okay, roll 2d12 for that. 11, nice. So as you exit the trees, you've got a few meters left until the corner. Remember what happened last time? You come in at an angle, so you sort of go out from the wall slightly, sort of in a semicircle shape. You go in towards the corner, kicking off the southern wall, pushing your momentum to the east, kicking off the east wall, and coming out of it at an angle, again circling back until you're back parallel with the south wall. You skid to a halt as you leave grass and meet rock, and stopping just past your reach's position. She sort of claps slowly for you, looking very pleased at your progress. You've really come a long way since before. I saw you fail that trick in the northeast corner, but then you pulled it off again second time. How how are the forests?
Well, some missteps for sure, so there is ample room for improvement.
There's always room to improve.
Indeed.
She sees that other humans are to come to the yard now for the purposes of this training seminar, and the 2nd Division members are leaving to go and train elsewhere. She sort of pats you on the shoulder and sort of like, I'll see you at the class then.
Yes. Thank you.
You all you head inside the hall where Soyphone's waiting, just finishing off some paperwork. She looks up at you as you enter and sort of, and then goes back to it. The hall continues to fill up, but there's less than half of the people who were here for the initial session that you were here for. Once it seems that nobody else is coming, Sophon stands up and, right. No waiting around this time. Let's head outside and see how much you've all improved. She heads outside and Yorich is waiting there, having set up a few things for people to try out. So I'm like, alright, once again, we'll test you in the 4 areas. See where everyone goes from there. Do you want to do sort of Ho testing, Hakuto testing, Kyudo testing, or Zanjutsu testing first?
Let's go with the Ho-Ho.
Okay. After the warm-up, you're very... you're sort of still in the mindset for trying that out. So, you go with the Ho group first. With Stella laid up in hospital and Hisame not able to come to the session either, the groups are headed by just other members of the 2nd Division that you don't recognize. The Ho one reminds everyone of how to channel spiritual energy into their feet and gain momentum that way. And just has everyone just do some exercises, sort of jumping as high as they can in one go, taking as long a step as far across the courtyard as they can, that kind of thing. You perform not quite at the top of this group, but definitely on par with the other person who's training there. You see they're also a member of the 2nd Division though, so you don't feel too bad about it. Once these exercises are done then, they say that Shunko itself is trying to essentially keep that speed going even when you're standing still, and says that you can't really be explained beyond that. Essentially, is that so? Essentially, you want even if you're standing completely still, you still want to be able to maintain that speed, even if that makes any sense. Like, it's not so much that you need to be like pretending to stand still, but that the moment you're attacked, you need to be at top speed, essentially. So shows it off the trainer shows it off themselves by from a standing position, instead of they take a single step about halfway across the courtyard to show that they were prepared for it, but then returning to their original position, they obviously relax and seem to not worry, but then at an unseen cue, they kick up off the ground, forming the sort of spiritual energy on their feet as they do so, then kick off from the air and land the same distance away. It's a bit blurred to you because they're moving so fast. However, you do manage to see what they're doing this time. So they're essentially going from a standstill with no spiritual channeling to kicking off the ground as they do spiritual channeling, then kicking off the air to land the same distance away from a relaxed position. you take time to practice this. Roll 2d12 for practicing that specific trick, and if you wish to, others. 11. So that's great. No, that was the previous one. Sorry. 12, even better. Having seen it just once, and having succeeded the other challenges you set yourself before on your second try or third try in the case of the gaps, you start from relaxed position. Then start off by taking a moment to tension muscles before kicking up, creating the aura around your feet as you do so, then kicking off the air to push yourself forwards. After a few tries, you manage to get down pretty quickly, to a point where, rather than just backflipping in place and then kicking off the air, you're kicking off the ground and backflipping forwards in an almost uppercut axe kick as an attack, and you're able to get the aura rolling much lower, which empowers the kick itself, and you end up going quite far across the courtyard by the end of this little bit of training.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Next up, Kido, Hakuda, or Zanjutsu?
Zanjutsu.
Alright. Sophone is heading this group. She pulls out her sword and says, most people choose not to use their Zanpakuto and Shunko. If you're at a sufficient level to be able to do so, then it can really turn the tide, but most of the time, people often end up just using their fists. We'll see if you've got the aptitude for it today, and go from there. She enters Shunko herself, but doesn't enter Shikai, instead just holding her sword. She shows that with her left hand, that she can still do her martial arts, and just sort of punch, kick, and usual. While with her right hand, she chooses to occasionally thrust or swipe with it, essentially mixing the two combat styles. Landing after a sort of combo attack against the air, she sort of says, "My style's a bit different from most of yours would be with this technique, since I mostly focus on using Suzumibachi. I'd suggest that you will try and use some Zanjutsu techniques now with channeling what you know so far. Roll 2d12. Six. Okay. You don't think you're quite skilled enough in Zanjutsu to be able to pull this off properly yet. However, you channel the spiritual energy to your hands and feet, and start fighting as you normally would. You notice that while your strikes aren't necessarily more powerful, you can get more of them in the same window of time. And the added mobility added by having it on your legs means that you can evade attacks much more easily while still keeping up the offensive. You also notice that while you haven't trained with it as much, having the energy in your hands as well is allowing you to do attacks that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to do. So, for example, you could try an overhead swing, but halfway through it you pull the sword back to move it past a sword that's been raised upwards to block, and then you could thrust it forward while also still slicing downwards. Enabling you to get past a block like that. Sophon sees your work, and after a moment of watching says, "You're not quite there yet, I think, but I definitely believe I'll have the ability to get there with a bit more training."
Very well.
Kido and Hakuda?
Hero?
Okay. You go over to this one, and this one is mostly focusing on more advanced techniques. They're wearing the same outfit as Yorich and Sofen with the open back and shoulders. And you watch, and they tell you and the rest of the group to focus on how their own spiritual energy feels as they enter Shunko. They do so very slowly to try and give everyone the ability to perceive it. Roll 1d12 perception. 5, okay, good enough. You don't get the fine details of what they're doing necessarily, but what you sense is that they're, rather than starting the building of spiritual energy in their arms or legs, they're starting it in their core, and then allowing it to travel upwards, and then go out their back, essentially. And as it reaches their back, it sort of spreads outwards from there, and then reaches their arms and legs. They explain as after they do this, while still maintaining it, that it's easier to train. They found so far that it's easier to train people to do just the arms and legs first, because as well as having combat utility, despite even if you learn true Shunko, it also means that people can then do the core spiritual energy build up separately and then move it to their arms and legs. They tell everyone to give it a try. However, they do warn them that not to put too much spiritual energy into it at the time, or the back of their clothes is going to basically burn up with how things currently are. So 2d12 for that.
Yes.
5, okay. You try and do it. You sense that you might perhaps be you might not be putting as much energy into this as you should be. Since you're worried about losing the back of your outfit. But you do manage to get a fairly decent core build-up going. You feel it doesn't quite feel like fire, but it feels like it's like there's spiritual energy channels that you've not used before that you're sending all this energy through. And as you do so, you sort of keep it low and steady and let it flow out through your shoulders and lower body down to your arms and legs. As it reaches the ends, you feel your entire body now full of energy. It starts to rise, and you cut it off once you realize what's happening. The trainer nods and says that was the right thing to do for the moment, but that you probably still could have gone further if you'd chosen to sort of feel like the limits a bit more. Finally, you've got Hakuda. Okay. You're just heading up this one, and she gives you a glance as you make the way to the class, as if to say that she knows that you're probably going to focus on Zanjutsu rather than Hakuda, but still walks everyone through the steps, doing the same thing as the Ho instructor did by just having everyone start with the basics again, and some exercises, just focusing on the Kido in your arms and how it augments physical blows without using a sword. Then she will envelop a single arm in the Kido, in the energy, and shows everyone that some things can do with it. So, for example, she punches the air, just a straight punch. However, she makes a spiritual energy around her forearm spin in a certain direction, which sends out a blast of wind spinning in that same direction, as a vortex almost, showing that you can modify the spiritual energy that you're inputting into your arms and how you want it to flow, in order to augment your attacks further with elements to some extent. She says that while not everyone can necessarily get to full elemental Shunko, everyone has that everyone will have at least some small aspect of the element that they're mostly attuned to as part of their Shunko, even if it doesn't necessarily manifest properly. So your choice if you want to roll 2d12 advantage, disadvantage, or just 1, given Hakuda is your weakest field.
Well, I mean, it would make sense for only one.
Okay. Yep, just below average as the other ones. Okay. You put your sword down and you practice this for a bit. It still doesn't come naturally to you, the actual physical fighting part. But you start to feel that the energies in your arms are definitely able to be controlled properly. You start to take a few practice swings with your sword while doing so, since this wasn't covered in the Zanjutsu segment necessarily, and you feel like the same sort of strategy that Yorichi used, where she punched forward with a sort of vortex of spiritual energy around her arm. Making an attack with your sword like that doesn't seem to work necessarily, because you're moving in an arc. However, you instead try to have it so that the wind is flowing, is essentially trying to push your arm down as you make the swing. It does feel a lot stronger when you try it like that. They get all the classes back together again and say sort of, most of you should be well on the way to Shunko by this point, but keep training with it and we'll go from there. Yorichi beckons for you to stay behind afterwards though. And we will get back to you later. And I'll do a second round for everybody afterwards. It is now Shigure's turn.
Yes, the last one.
Yes, indeed. Last one for this round, because there'll be a second round after, because we've got an hour left. I'm not going to try and push it for the sake of it. Alright, so what does Shigure want to do with his time to practice? Or just free time in general?
He will. Okay. He will request. Let's see, who would be suitable. He will request the accompaniment of. I think. I assume that Captain Kuchigi would be too busy, correct?
Captain Kuchiki?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I assumed as much. And in that case, how about the secondary Captain Kuchigi?
You're probably going to see her, but she's holed up in her office as well.
All right. In that case, I'm trying to remember who else would be suitable for what I think.
I mean, you could probably. I mean, you could just pull Arvin with you if necessary.
No, I'm specifically looking for a certain thing.
Renji, maybe.
No, he would not fit the description. Well, I guess would fit the description by marriage, but not not mentality-wise.
Fair enough.
And Yoritsu, she's busy as well.
Well, she's gonna be with the classes, but if you got her between classes, she might be able to help. These aren't necessarily all happening at the same time.
All right. If so, Yoritsu would probably be the only one available.
Yeah, so as you approach her, she sort of asks what you want.
Two things. First off, I wish to, well, I wish to visit what remains of the grounds that were once under the Kiyomitsu clan.
And second?
Well, I, as far as I understand it, have some questions about the great clans and nobility and all of that, and otherwise, I believe that the most suitable person to contact for keto training would be to continue discussing the topic with Tessa in the human world, and, well, if anyone has errands to Rahara's shop anyway.
Mm. Remind me where the Kimitsu grounds are?
It would be in the same district as all the other like nobility
Okay, so
clans. Okay, like just outside the Seirete walls,
yeah,
essentially.
just abandoned, I guess, again.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you head there then, I guess.
Yes.
Let's pull up this. Alright, you head out to the Kimitsu grounds. I mean, have you stayed there? You've stayed there before, or is it more run down? I forget.
This one has essentially been overtaken like by just abandoned because it was not possible to keep it anymore because the previous generation.
Fair enough. Alright, so you make your way to where you know the house to be. The high walls around the estate are overgrown with plants and vines and trees. But it doesn't look particularly broken down. Like nobody's told not to like broken down the walls or anything. Making your way to the front gate, you notice that it's just open. There's not really a physical gate there anymore. It's just the entryway.
He will enter the grounds, but still pretending as if there was a gate in order to abide to customs.
Enough. As you enter, you feel your sword spirit stirring, but nothing specific yet. The grounds are definitely overgrown. All the plants would have been previously very carefully cared for. Are just all over the place. You can see all sorts of what would pass for wildlife in the spirit realm, just having taken this place over and made it their own, essentially. It's mostly just bugs and equivalent thereof, but it's still life. There is a pool of water, but it's stagnant, and you don't get too close to it, probably.
I will head into the building and try and locate the patriarch's room.
Right. You make you into the house. There's no map, obviously, and it's a bit big and confusing. But after 20-30 minutes of opening every door in the house and trying to find which one seems to be the right one, you eventually come to the remains of a bedroom. Mostly inside the house, none of it's crumbling or anything, but a lot of it's just dusty and the occasional plant coming in through the window. If there is.
I mean, it would only have been like 2 generations.
I mean, that's still a lot of time. That's like multiple decades.
Yes, but
yeah, it's very not cared for. Is the point. You enter the room then. What are you looking for specifically?
I will open the, I assume, large window to the front.
Okay.
And nod down to Yoruichi that she can just enter through the window if she wants.
Yeah, I mean she's been inside with you as well, but she sort of at one point did dip to go outside, so she hops up on the window frame.
I sit down in what I assume was probably the previous patriarch's chair and kind of. It's kind of strange, isn't it? To imagine that this was once on the same level as the other lesser noble families.
Still squatting on the windowsill, very cat-like, and perhaps not exactly the best pose to have a serious conversation. She's very serious about it regardless. Yeah. Time does go though. Sorry I had to deal with this.
It's hard to imagine. As far as I can tell from, well, Captain Kuchiki, to him nobility is something that is to be upkept.
She shakes her head. Sadly, what he says is not what happened. I'm sure you understand. There's a lot that noble houses go back on their word sometimes. And sadly, in some cases, they look out for themselves. He may be getting better, but he's still not perfect.
Indeed. And then there's the Tsunayashiro debacle.
She shakes her head. Don't even get me started.
The Easy clan and their, well, some would call it the curse. And while the current generation of the Feng seems to be quite happy with their lot, as the Shehoin head, I assume that you, if anyone, would be knowledgeable about the, well, the shackles the Feng clan has to yours.
Yeah. Having an entire noble clan base its nobility on the fact that they're retainers to a higher, a more powerful noble clan is not the greatest situation for them to be in.
He kind of ponders. Well, he kind of looks around. Specifically, he looks at like the very few, but the existing focus of people in the office.
Yeah. A lot of the personal effects were taken, but some were left behind. In these cases, including like you say, some of the photos.
He will pull out like he will remove the cloak from his shoulder pad and hold it in his hand. Well, I think it's time that I found out what my view of nobility is as well.
Yoruichi reaches forward and sort of ruffles his hair as he's looking down. Well, good luck finding the right one. He smiles cheekily.
I don't believe there is a right one.
And you're getting it.
But rather, I need to find what is my sense of nobility.
Yeah.
He kind of thinks, like flashes back in his mind to the recent battles, conflicting between responsibilities, wants, ambitions. Well, he then stands up, pushes the table forward a bit,
Mhm.
so that it's kind of pushed away from other places.
Yeah.
Throws out his cape onto it.
Mhm.
Well, I believe it's time for. And he pulls his sword as it says, "A new era of the Kiyomitsu clan."
Okay, what's he about to do?
He's gonna prepare himself in like a kendo stance,
Okay.
and with all his swordsmanship he has, he will slice down onto the, essentially cleaving the cape into probably the table as well, and then whatever as deep as he can.
Okay. You bring your sword down, and as your blade begins to cut through the fabric and into the wood, you feel a strange sensation from your sword. You feel as if Namida is a bit confused. As if this wasn't what he meant by property damage. However, he doesn't seem to be sad about it, I guess is the best way to put it.
He will, Shiguru will then kind of not immediately pull the blade out of the table/floor,
Yeah, floor at this point.
and kind of go. I believe that you might be correct. However, the clan leader that you imagine is slightly altered. He'll then pull out a sword, sheath it, and walk out of the room, seemingly resolved to do something.
Okay, we can come back to that later then. Are you going to the world of the living later?
Yes.
Okay, I have a plan then. Going back to the top, with Seijo.
Hello.
Hello. It is part 2 of your turn. Do you wish to go to the world of the living to make some more bread?
Yeah.
I will get Google up and start finding bread types.
I mean, if we're looking at pastries, I was thinking of like brioche or croissant or donuts.
All good choices.
Or maybe I don't know. Those are the three on the top of my head.
Okay. We'll go through all of those then. You make your way to the world of the living. Who are you having accompany you there?
I don't know. I might just have the same two people as before
Okay.
if they're planning. Yeah.
Okay. Kenta pinches his nose in frustration again, but allows him to go with you. However, also warns you not to let Mashiro out of your sight, or bring her into any buildings, or indeed let her into the human world at all. At which point he just realizes that better to keep her there and just let Hisagi come with you.
Okay. I wouldn't have paid heed to his warning at all, to be honest.
That's fair. He just basically just holds Mashiro back. She goes, "Oh, I wanted to go there." Hisagi comes along with you. You meet Shigure at the Senkaimon, who's accompanied by Yoriichi. And the two of you just waiting for a moment as the Senkaimon gets sorted out. You got some room to talk if you want to.
I don't really have much to say, so no.
Fair enough. Is Shigure just resolved enough to not want to talk either, or?
He will kind of say, Seijiro, if it wouldn't be a bother to you, I might have need for your help once you're finished with whatever errand you have in mind.
Sure. I'm not going to be long anyway.
How little you know. Bread is not to be rushed, anyway. You make your way through this incline line then. Into Karakura town. There he is. Karakura. Shigure and Seijo. I'm assuming you head towards Urahara's shop, Shigure?
Yes, but he will take a detour along the river again.
Okay, and we'll come back to you later. Seijo's turn then. You make your way to the bakery. As
Yeah.
usual. So you'll go there, you go there. Misagi, knowing that you're going to be a while probably, given how things go in the division, says he'll wait outside and says not to worry because the shopkeeper probably can't see him, and if he can, then there's bigger things to worry about. So
Okay.
he'll just wait outside for you. As you enter the room, the shopkeep looks up. He's busy serving a few other customers at the moment. But when he sees you, he sort of seems a bit excited. And just motions for you to just be a moment while he finishes up with the previous customers. Do you want to take a look at around the shop again, or do you want to just sit there and wait?
Yeah, I'll just browse with my eyes
Okay.
while I'm waiting.
There's a few different new bread types that he didn't have before, since last time. You do notice that there is a basket of baguettes as well. Part of you wonders if it's enough to reach France. After a few minutes, the other customers leave, and he's sort of, well, welcome back, old friend.
Hello, good to see you again.
What can I do for you today?
Well, I decided to expand my skills into pastries or things that are like bread but aren't bread. Does that make sense?
Like bread but aren't bread. I see. He thinks to himself. Yes, I have a plan afterwards, but let's do this first. He goes to the back and brings about a collection. You recognize it's the same collection of pastries as last time. Croissant, pain au chocolat, raspberry crown pastry, and Danish swirl. I gave these to you before, but you might benefit from a refresher.
Ah, yeah, definitely. I haven't practiced these, to be fair, so...
Yeah. You try them all again. The pain au chocolat, it's croissant first. The end's a bit crunchy, the inside's quite soft. Despite the fact that there's not that much to it because of how the inside is layered, it's still satisfying to eat. The pain au chocolat is a bit different in texture. Both the half that you eat and then the half that he warms for you so you can get the chocolate properly. The raspberry crown, I believe last time you thought the jam was too sweet because you're not used to those sorts of flavors. So you probably think the same again this time. However, you notice that the jam is a bit different this time.
Oh.
You sort of, as you notice, you sort of, I changed the recipe a little bit. Should be a little more flavoursome and less sweet now.
It is, yeah.
That's good. The last one in the sort of cinnamon iced bun. Again, quite sweet, but intentionally so rather than unintentionally.
Yeah.
So the cinnamon is it's not strong necessarily, but it's present enough that it helps sort of counter the sweetness a bit.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to try any of these, I'm more than welcome to help.
The pain au chocolat seems like a good one to try.
Alright, let's give this a shot then. He sort of puts a sign on the counter saying "Be back soon," and takes you into the back to show you all the different ways he's made the bread. He starts by putting together the basic pastry that he uses for the pain au chocolat. Essentially making a croissant out of it first, to show you the basic process. and then shows you the process for a sponge chocolate, which is slightly different, ending with a different shape, and also having to put the chocolate inside it. It says, if you have
Okay.
access to chocolate, this might be a bit difficult to make, though. So, if you can perfect the continue for a croissant, then you'd be able to make this too with a few small changes.
Oh. Have I heard of chocolate before?
You've heard of it a couple of times. It gets traded around by members of your division.
Okay, so I could get my hands on some if
You
I
could,
wanted
yeah.
to.
Although you're not sure of the quality of it or texture, it's
Okay.
probably not.
It would probably have to fight Mashiro if anyone for it.
Yeah, you'd have to bribe. You have to bribe Superintendent for it.
Well, maybe the croissant's better to start with then.
Yeah.
I'll go with the croissant then, maybe. The
Okay.
pain au chocolat would be difficult to make. Right
Roll
now.
d12.
Alright. And a 1.
And a 1. You struggle a lot to do this. Despite your desire to make different types of bread, you feel like this one might be a bit out of your league at the moment. You just can't quite get it right. You notice this sort of like, let's see what you're doing wrong. He sort of makes one himself and then watches you make another one, sort of, I see what it is. And corrects your form a bit, sort of showing where you're rolling it too thin in some places, too thick in others, or how you're, how essentially some of the way you're mixing some of the stuff you add to it isn't really that you've done it too much or not enough in some cases, or there's too much egg or not enough of this, not enough of that, and it's just trying to get the right mixture of stuff. Roll on a d12.
It's like I'm still trying to make bread in my head,
Yeah,
so it's not
pretty much.
working. Yeah.
You are still trying to make bread. He sort of thinks that he looks. You're like, what you're doing is right, but it's not coming out correctly. He sort of, what's going on in your head at the moment with this?
I don't know. Thinking about bread, to be honest.
Maybe that's it. See, things like this are not bread, traditionally speaking. Though you are a very bread-inclined person, as I can tell by the fact you've been here multiple times before. Something like this would be potentially. He sort of thinks hard. Have you done anything that's not bread in the past?
No.
Maybe that's it then. He sort of thinks for a moment. Have you seen the movie Ratatouille?
What's a movie?
He sort of stops for a second, sort of. Okay. Well, let's just try this then, shall we? He sort of stands next to you, and sort of rests his hands on his tools and just motions you to rest your hands on top of his.
Okay.
It feels a little weird, but however, you feel the way he's moving, like the way his hands are moving, what he's doing and whatnot. And by doing so, you get a feel for the way he's making it is different from what you're doing. Like you're making bread and you're using sort of bread making techniques, whereas his technique is completely different. And sort of as he finishes making it, he's sort of, all right, now let's try this again. See if that helps. Roll on a d12.
1. Oh.
No, good. Finally, I can progress the story. Having done that, you recognize it's a bit different, and you start to try and make it. As he watches you make it, he occasionally rests his hands on yours and sort of tries to move you a little bit differently. And little by little, you come to realize that you're not making bread anymore, in a good way. Like, you realize that while this is still the same base, almost, it's completely different. It wasn't something you had the conscious amount to do, but through his help, you've managed to overcome that barrier.
Oh. So I've had my light bulb moment.
You have indeed had your light bulb moment.
Oh.
You don't know what a light bulb is.
Oh.
The croissant you you pull out of the oven this time is looking much more normal compared to your previous tries, and he wants you to eat it. It tastes like victory.
Tastes like victory.
Nice. He's very happy for you with that. The other pastries might be a bit more work at the moment, especially with sweetness not being your thing. He thinks to himself for a moment. Yes, maybe next time. I've got a meeting. I've got something I've got to sort out soon, so I'm going to have to send you off. But next time, I have something planned. Perhaps it might be interesting to you.
Definitely. This will give me plenty of opportunity to practice this now.
Looking forward to it. And with that, I'll leave it there in case anything that happens afterwards.
Well, I know Shigori asked for a favor.
He did, so that's I'm gonna leave you to come back to you.
I mean, I assume that considering how long he has spent baking at this point, roughly when he is finished and all, he will probably get a Tentikura call.
Probably. So we'll come back to that when it's your turn. It's now Yasha's turn. Okay, let's go back to Serite. Back underneath Sokyoku Hill. You're getting the hang of what his Shikai does. It's still a bit challenging. You're still missing a lot of attacks by swinging to the left instead of the right, or occasionally crashing into the walls or floor by jumping up instead of down, or going forwards instead of backwards. But you're still getting the hang of it, and while doing so, you feel your inhibitions loosen little by little. Shinji's hollow spiritual energy around the area, plus the hollow energy in Hachi's barriers, it's feeling a little like Quickomundo was. Not completely, obviously. It's difficult to replicate exactly, but to some extent you feel as if there's that comfort there.
Considering the lacking inhibitions slightly at this point, and the knowledge that there is the safety net of Hachigen as well as and Shinji being very powerful,
Yeah.
he will try to essentially push himself to probably attack with fire stance, but then try to switch to mountain, even if only for a moment or only if only partially, to block any retaliation.
Roll d12. Oh, okay, fair enough, sir. Perfect. You make the attack. As it lands, and damage, and he blocks it, making it counter. You shift stance, blocking his attack, counterattacking him back, and he blocks it. And within fire, he blocks it. You go back into earth, and he attacks you again. You can't retaliate this time, but when he realizes what you're doing, he realizes, I see this is working.
Kind of collecting himself and assessing the whole situation. It would seem so. No. There's still some limitations I can sense.
Well,
It feels as if... I believe this is something where perhaps you can enlighten me. It feels as if there is more power to pull out, but seems to be limited by the mere pressure of my Shinigami powers.
So things sort of, it is natural to want to limit your hollow power, your use of your hollow powers to some extent, given the instincts. But so the things from it, you've got two choices when it comes to doing that. Either you fight your instincts and try and prevail in spite of them, or you allow them to rise to the surface and fight alongside them. You don't need to give in to them entirely and become mindless, nor do you need to ignore them and suppress that part of yourself. But this isn't something I can do. I don't think I can help you with right now. He sort of checks his watch, especially since I've got a meeting in a moment.
Yasha will kind of hear only partially, but his mind essentially stops listening after hearing one part of that sentence.
Which part?
Letting it come to the surface.
Oh dear. Does it do that right now?
No, but it echoes throughout his mind.
Okay. As Ayasha's thinking though, Shinji sheaths his sword and motions for Hachi to take the barriers down. I think we're done for today, but you made good progress. While I'm not sure when I'll have time again next time, perhaps we can keep going with training. I might even be able to help you with your sword play.
He looks over, snapping himself out of the situation. Yeah. Question, if you perhaps don't oppose it. Well, how did your spirits within your blades react to your transformation?
The expression shutters completely as he thinks of this. Sakanade was horrified. Her personality was entirely changed by it. Before she was a sphinx, like Egyptian nurse, but now with the hollow mask she wears, she's much more violent. It's taken a long time to come to terms with that and try and work through the worst of the negativity, but it's still difficult.
Then I think I have an idea of what needs to be done.
What do you have in mind?
Well, if your byproduct power is partly because you were qualified, so too were your Sunpack toes. For me, it's different. While my Sunpack toe has been hollowified, me myself has retained a, in theory, pure Shinigami stance. And Shinigami energy repels hollows.
To some extent, yes.
In other words, I need to break those shackles myself.
That you'll have to do, I'm afraid. I'll leave you to it if that's alright. I've got something to deal with. So scratches his head a little sheepishly.
Well, send my regards to Captain Oroboshi.
Will do. He climbs out of the training area. Do you get back to your division then?
Yasha will kind of stay by himself and try to communicate with his sword.
Okay. Your sword spirit doesn't seem to want to communicate right now. You get the sense that it understands what you're doing and wants to help, but right now it's just not the right time for it to be able to talk, I guess.
Would seem thou needs rest as well. Well then. And he will kind of just sit there and ponder until essentially late night.
Alright. Nozomi then.
Yes.
After the class is over, Yorichi beckons you over. Given the situation right now, I feel that it would be remiss for me to wait until the next class for you to properly attain Shunko.
Oh.
However, given the technique, she sort of thinks to herself, I feel like you might prefer not to have to wear a backless outfit like the rest of us. Tell you what, I'll let you in a bit of a secret. She sort of grins slightly, and sort of leans into whisper. Truthfully, she doesn't require you to wear an outfit like that. Generally speaking, it does, but that's only if you don't have the control to keep it within your body. I do, but when I first created the technique, it was unrefined, so to speak. She sort of flares it up, and you can see that a lot of the energy coming off her back just seems to just dissipate into the air as if it's being wasted. If I do it like this instead, and you feel her just sort of, not quite constrict, but sort of as if she's pressing like a wall to her back, almost, in the way that her spiritual energy just sort of feels like it's being pushed back into her body. Until you see that her back is not giving off anything specifically, and there's even more going to her arms and legs in exchange. It's a bit harder to maintain like this, but it doesn't require anyone to wear anything. Although, don't tell Sophone that I told you this. She sort of smiles a little lightly as she says that.
I will.
Never hear the end of it if she finds out. Alright. Let me help you with this then. So, back when you had the Kido class earlier, remember that you want to try and build it up in your core and then send it out to your arms and legs. However, once it reaches your full body, let it build up entirely, but instead of letting it build fully, it builds in your core and then send it outwards. You might end up wasting more at the head, in your arms and legs, rather than wasting it at your back, but it won't be as destructive to your clothing. Roll 2d12 for that. 7. I'll take that. You do the same before, building up on your core, and then once it reaches a decent enough level, you send it out to your arms and legs. You feel your whole body start to sort of raise in power, and like she taught you, while you let it happen of its own accord, you try and force the energy out to your arms and legs. You feel like forcing it's not the right thing. You should try be drawing it out instead to start with, but it does seem to be working okay. Once you, after a few more minutes of practice, you stop trying to push it out and start trying to almost let it happen naturally by expelling spiritual energy from your arms and legs and having the energy from your core that's generated roll on to fill the gaps. It feels like it's happening a lot more naturally now. Yorichi, seeing you go through this process, smiles appreciatively. You're picking it up quickly. Sources is not quite at a level where you'd be able to use it in Shunko, but I think you'll get there pretty soon. As long as you train between now and whenever the Captain Commander has plan comes around, I think you'll have the capability to do so.
I couldn't have done it without your help.
Happy to help. She looks around. Second Division courtyards and training grounds are open for anyone who's practicing Shunko, so you're welcome to come around here anytime you need to stretch your legs or your arms. Keeps you off the... We've had... she sort of scratches her head a little embarrassed. We had an issue in the past where people who were training, the first lot of people we had training weren't allowed in Second Division to do so, and they ended up running races along Serite streets.
Oh.
It was amusing, but the captain commander had to put a stop to it. Though he was sad as well that he had to do so.
Understandable.
Alright, well. You take care of yourself.
You too.
And I'll see if I can give you some more pointers on your Ho once you get back from that training in a few weeks.
Nice.
You make your way back to your division, and with that, you will, by the start of next session, have obtained Shunko. You've also started working towards Ho Mastery. And yeah, I should have started working towards Jitsu Mastery. Now we get back to Shigure. Back to Shigure. Taser.
Yes.
Okay. So you made your way along the river then?
Yes.
Just taking a walk, not doing anything specific?
No, just knowing what, like, determined to for one thing.
Okay. I just realised the entire party was still at Rahara's shop. Not anymore. So you just make your way to the shop then, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. As you enter, you find him once again talking with Shakuhachi. How do you react, given that the first time you saw him he was talking here, but the second time he was at the battle, the end.
He will go, pardon the intrusion.
Your reach, he sort of slides in behind and gives him a wave, and he tips his hat towards her as he sort of, I don't mind.
I believe we've not been introduced. Shiguro will say, and kind of looking towards Shakuhachi.
He nods back to you. I don't have much time to be away from Kaido right now, but I'm discussing with Urahara here about plans put to him by the Captain Commander on your end. It may be some time before they get sorted out there.
Well, I suppose at least the handshake is in order.
He sort of seems bemused. I suppose it is custom for you. And offers a hand to you. You feel no violent intent from him.
No. He will then kind of, well, I shall be using your training grounds. Looking at Urahara.
Kisuke sort of raised his acknowledgement. I'll send Tessai down to help you.
Yes. Oh, I might require the aid of Seijo Komugi later on. If so, yes, send him down.
Where will I find him?
Well, he should be learning about bread, I believe. But I will send him probably through a Tente Kura later.
Alright, I'll let you deal with that then.
He then heads down and kind of gently pushes Shakuhachi to the side so that he can pass by. While doing so, he will leave a very small, near undetectable trace amount of his reishi on Shakuhachi's outfit, just in case he needs to use a Sengeki in the distant future.
As you sort of make your way past him and the rest of sort of brush his outfit and leave the thing on him, as you climb down, you sense him purging it. And you sort of, as you're climbing down, he sort of looks over the edge and sort of, I'm sorry, I can't allow any trace of you to be on myself. Kaido would sense it.
Well, let's hope I don't regret that.
He nods back to you and then sort of moves away from the exit.
He will then climb down.
You spend some time. You've got about a few minutes before Tessai gets here.
During this, he will remove the shoulder pad, which still needs a new cape that he would probably buy on the way back.
Okay.
But leave that to the side. He will also leave his sword by the entrance as well.
Okay. As Tessai comes down the ladder, he sees you down and sort of, Kyoto training today again?
In some sense, yes.
And in other senses?
Well, you are the most skilled keto practitioner that Soul Society has seen for many a decade, many a century.
Flatter me. He pushes his glasses up.
As such, I require a very specific task of you.
Do tell.
Well, I wish you to teach me quite a large topic.
Go on.
He will also push out his glasses in response. I believe it's time I brushed up on Hado.
I thought you'd never ask. He spends the next however long.
He will forever, however, go. However, I do not seek some mindless destruction here, but rather precision.
He thinks for a moment. I'm not sure how much I can help you without teaching you the century set, but
No, you just go about, but make sure to include the very core components and how the spell is actually formed rather than just the simple method of creating it.
okay. Well, let's start simple, shall we? Without warning, he launches the Byakurai at you, without even raising his hands to do so. How do you react when he does this?
How much power has he put into this Byakurai?
Barely any.
I will try to just essentially just grab it in my hand and try to absorb the spiritual energy of it before firing off my own Byakurai in response.
You raise your hand to catch it. It singes your skin a bit, and you can't absorb any of it. But you get the sense that now you remember how the spell feels. It reminds you of how to fire off your own one, and you send one back at him. He bats to the side with his hand, leaving a small scorch mark on the wall, but also on his hand, sort of.
However, what I do isn't technically sending it straight back at him.
Yeah.
I fire the Byakurai just to the side of him, and while it's being fired out, I move my hand towards his neck, up into the air, and then down on the other side, so that it essentially makes a bell form around his head, without actually hurting him.
Okay. As you try and move your hand, the lightning doesn't follow it, and just goes wide from the original point. However, he doesn't notice what you were doing, and steps away from the ladder so you don't cut it open. Well, I want to attack you again, so let's go over that now. He brings him over to you and sort of faces you towards the center of the cave. Try and form a basic Byakurai now, slowly.
I will try to use a Byakurai then.
Okay,
with incantation, so that it's like with the full basics version.
Okay. You send it out. You sort of, I see. I think this is a visualization I think that's a visualization thing that you need to do rather than anything else. But I'll try and teach you more of that later on. I get the feeling that we won't have an opportunity to do this again for a few more weeks, by which point you may have your Bankai. And the extra control that affords you may be enough for you to be able to learn this properly. Techniques such as a Byakurai whose shape isn't a straight line, for example, may be attainable at that point.
Igor will think of something. I will try to combine a Byakurai and a Hainawa.
You attempt to create both at the same time, like in the same hand or one in each hand?
In the same hand. I essentially use the Byakurai to create the properties of it, but then I use the shape of the Hainawa.
What you send out is... You're not quite sure. It's either a Byakurai that seems to be connected to you like a Hainawa, or it's a Hainawa that's settling Byakurai. It can't decide which it is, and it ends up just disintegrating halfway through, having not been able to find a complete form. What did you try and mix together there?
A Byakurai and a Hainawa.
I suppose that's close to what we have to do here. Though mixing two spells can have consequences, as you saw. It's not sure you're not sure what elements to pick from each one specifically, so.
Well, at least on the Bakudo side, I believe myself knowledgeable enough.
Indeed.
So I turn to you for the Hado.
Yes. He raises his hand well, let's try some high level ones. We've got like 10 minutes left and just skip ahead to later on. You spend some time practicing Hado. With your reserves, you can get all the way up to Kurihitsugi at the moment, and Senju Koten Taiho. Finding them both to be draining, but very much worth the effort. By the end of it, the arena in front of you has been scorched and scored. The wall at the far end having several blast marks on it, but otherwise unharmed. And once you're done with some of the high level ones, he turns to you and says, I believe you wanted to ask a friend for some help.
Yes, that would be the case.
Alright.
And I will use a Tentekura to contact Seijo.
Okay, Seijo, as you're leaving the bakery,
Yeah.
and you see Hisagi outside, just still standing there as he was when you left him, you hear a sort of voice in your head calling you.
Have I ever experienced this before?
Yes.
I believe
He
has.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like a one-way message or?
No, it's
essentially
channel.
like a phone, but without a physical thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an open air Discord call,
Right.
basically.
Okay.
Well, how's your baking going?
I'm all done here.
Well, if so, would you mind coming down to Rahara's shop?
Yeah, I do.
I have potential use for your minion creation abilities.
Alrighty.
Hisagi, seeing you walk off, follows you down. And you make your way inside Urahara's shop. As you do so, you see Shagahachi just leaving by the front door. He nods to you as you walk past. On the inside, Kisuke and Yorichi having a strange sort of fight where she's trying to get his hat off his head and he's just trying to keep avoiding her. As you come in, however, he looks to you and sort of holds up a hand for her to stop, which she doesn't. Just rips the hat off his head. He looks very sad about it, but then sort of, Shigeru is downstairs. You better go follow him. And then he tries to start getting his hat back from Yorichi, who's not letting him have it.
Okay.
Question: How far has Shigeru progressed with the whole customized Hado at this point?
Not
Or is it-
very. You'll get. I'll give you Kido Mastery after Bankai, but
All right.
we can go from there. But I would say that for the purposes of after today's session, you will have access to Hado without extra effects.
All right.
Customization. Do you want help from Seijo then?
Yes. Once he comes down, how many minions are you potentially able to create with your Shikai?
6.
That should be appropriate then. If it would be possible, I would like you to create as many minions as you can. Ignite 2 of them. And then I want to try and, if you don't mind, use the unignited one as target practice while you try and move them about and be as evasive as possible. And if I hit any of the ignited ones, well, that's my loss.
Okay. I shall summon the minions and burn the number requested.
Like 2 of them, so that there's 4. 3.
Yeah. And then I'll instruct them to run around.
And if you can, make it so that the burning ones every now and then kind of get close to the other ones, just to make it hard.
Okay. Is it possible? Do the minions only move if I give them an instruction?
Yes. However, if you give, you can. However, since you're not doing anything else, I will just say that you can just do whatever you want at this point.
Yeah, because I just having them move simultaneously in such a fashion would require a high level of concentration, I assume.
Yeah, you would basically be foregoing combat to just have them run around like.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
He will do it, but it probably won't be to the quality that he was expecting or wanting.
Yeah.
So there might be times when they just stop moving without warning and then start again. And
I mean, that's fair.
Roll a d6.
Who?
Tay.
Okay.
Alright.
What spell is he using, by the way?
I'm starting with a Byakurai to try and pinpoint one of the targets.
As you pinpoint it, and try and lead your shot, it stops they all stop moving suddenly, and it lands on a burned one, exploding it immediately.
Okay. I will try, now with only 1 life left, so to speak. I will try again, now with even more concentration.
Roll a d5.
A d5? Okay.
Yes, these are the number of minions he has.
Okay.
You rolled a 1 or a 2, and the bit burn was 1 and 2, so... As long as you don't roll a 1 now, you're good. You easily strike the minion you're aiming for. And it disintegrates.
Okay. I will step it up to a shakaho.
Okay. D4. This comes fairly easily to you. You know Shakaho's a bit slower than Byakurai, so you lead your shot a bit more, and it lands perfectly where you aimed it.
Okay. I will take the very small step up to Hyen.
Okay, roll d3. Okay, still a hit. Let me go to Hardo just to make sure I remember exactly what Hyen is. It's the electric one, I think, isn't it?
Hyen is the dark one.
Dark, okay.
It's essentially like the dark slash.
Hardo. Hyen is tier 6, okay. Okay. You do a Hyen then. It barely misses the one of the burnt ones. Or the last remaining burnt one, however it still hits the target you were aiming for. The remaining 2 minions, now that Seijo has less to focus on, start moving much more erratically and dangerously. You've got one more minion left.
Okay, question here.
Yeah.
I shall just ask.
Mm-hmm. Are you asking me directly? Okay.
Yes.
Only if you want to have to pay Urahara for damages.
Sure.
Oh dear.
Well, let's try this.
Roll a d2. Okay, it would have been very funny if you'd failed that one.
I essentially do an incantation that Tessa would probably mostly recognize, but I slightly alter it.
Shortening it, basically.
Ichin Ryu Tenmetsu instead of Gonryu.
Okay. Tessa, seeing you do this, takes a step back, but as he realizes what you're trying to do instead, he doesn't worry so much. The ground cracks, and a gigantic dragon of water rises from the ground, roaring and dealing 5 damage of each of the 8 elements to the minion, dealing 40 damage to the minion. It's just gone. It's completely washed away. But the last burnt one, realizing it's the last one left, and also given the situation, sort of does a little jump and twirl in the air like it's a victory fanfare, celebrating Shigure's success at not warring her 1. 5 times in a row.
Well, that was something.
The water dragon, its job done, sort of descends back into the crack, just turns back into pure water. The water refills the crack, and the crack seals over back into rock. Tessa pushes his glasses up. Interesting use of that spell, though. I see you're worse the wear for it.
Well, mostly rustiness, I believe. That was the same after I used Kin the first time.
Yes, well, Kin doesn't drain your own life force to power itself.
Well, maybe so. He kind of cracks it, like Shiguru will kind of crack his neck a bit and kind of roll his shoulder. At least he kind of stretches up. At least I'm attuned enough with water, at least, to where that was manageable.
Yes, it would have been difficult for most other people to do that. Right. You sort of you hear a yowling sound from upstairs, and Tesla just sighs. I better go and break up that fight. You two should head back to Serite when you're able to. If neither of you has anything else to do, you can head back.
Yeah, I got nothing else to do.
Shiguro will head up, and in order to help Tessai, he will, essentially, as he comes up, he will fire off just a sigh on each of them. Even if it doesn't actually bind them, it will distract them.
The first, who do you aim for first?
Probably whoever is moving, like the seeming aggressor.
Yeah. So as you climb up, you see Tessai trying to stand between them, like the one scene from Jurassic Park with Chris Pratt and the Raptors. Yorichi's lunging towards Urahara, trying to steal his hat again. And Urahara's sort of trying to dodge. You go for Yorichi then. It hits her. She realizes what's happened, but instead she just tries to headbutt Urahara. And Urahara, taking advantage of this, grabs her by the arms and throws her into the next room. Do you still want to go for Urahara as well?
At this point, instead, I will use a Sekienton in order to prevent her from cracking into a wall.
Okay. You stop her from crashing into a wall then.
By essentially creating a safety net.
Yeah. That's fair. She shakes off the sigh, but seems to calm down a little bit from being thrown. This was fun, but if you're heading back, I have to come too, which is a shame. And sort of sticks her tongue out at Kisuke, who pulls down one of his eyelids. Responds. Acting like children, of course. Tessai just sighs and goes to make more tea. The two of you head back then. You head back to the Senkaimon. Back to Serite. And you await a response from the head captain.
Iguru will be essentially attending the Shino Academy classes for beginners Kido, just to brush up everything.
That's where we end the session.